Hello, good morning, and welcome to Let's Talk Autism with Shannon and Nancy. I'm Nancy Alspaugh-Jackson.
And I'm Shannon Penrod, and you just saw previous D&Ds.
Yes, including our most recent one, which was two Sundays ago?
Yes.
Right, and we had our Halloween show last week, so we didn't talk about it, but we just want to talk a little bit about it today. I'm sorry, I'm adjusting so I can hear Kelby out there.
Because in just a few minutes, when we go to break, we're going to be joined by Byron Katie. I know some of you are tuning in to see Byron Katie, and we're very excited to have her on the show.
And she's going to be doing the work with me.
Ooh, very excited about it. If you're not familiar with Byron Katie and have just stumbled across us, you've come to the right place.
Yes.
You've come home. But we're going to talk briefly about D&D, Denim and Diamonds, and Stars for Autism.
Which was great. You were there. You were on the red carpet. I think we have some photos of Shannon hitting me on the red
of me.
interviewing me on the red carpet, and it was quite. I'm sorry, I keep looking over. There we are.
Oh,
there you are talking to me on the red carpet. That's
Nancy
me in a gown that was designed by Saeed Kobasi, and we auctioned it off.
So Nancy looks like a Barbie, and I look at you with
there's Lisa
Gibbons.
She opened the show for us, my darling Lisa, who I was her executive producer, and she's remained one of my dearest friends.
And she was just
and then is there one of Heavenly Joy with Lisa? Or is there's Little Heavenly Joy from America's Got Talent with Lisa. She performed and was just amazing.
She brought the house down. It was truly wonderful.
And then do we have Sean Stockman and Sharonda by any chance? That's Sean and Sharonda who were honored, and that's Terry Lewis and his wife. Terry Lewis is one of the biggest R&B producers of all time.
Really?
Yeah, I didn't know that, but he is, and he came that evening. And then we were auctioning off that gown, and Howie comes bursting onto the stage and says he'll throw in his pants by Lululemon, and he dropped them. He dropped trow and actually took them off, and he actually threw in his underwear in the bargain. He did not take his underwear off, but he did raise quite a bit of money for us. But he said Sean Stockman had raised a lot of money right before that by auctioning off VIP tickets and a trip to Las Vegas to hear Boys to Men. And Sean Stockman, for those of you who didn't see him on the show a couple of weeks ago, he and his wife Sharonda have their own charity, Micah's Voice, named after their son with autism, Micah, who is 13. And Sean was honored, and Sean sang a cappella medleys of his hits to raise the bidding, saying, okay, I'm going to be singing this. So Howie said he didn't have Sean's talent, so he could just go out there and make of himself and offer his pants. So it was quite the evening.
It was quite the evening, and thank you for being the fearless leader that made it happen.
It was a hard evening for me because my husband was in the hospital.
And no one would have known that at the event because you were a champion. You looked like a Barbie. You were dressed like a Barbie.
I don't want to look like a Barbie. I don't know that I want that look, but I would like to look good.
On any given day, I would be willing to look like a Barbie once.
Okay.
I look like Barbie's inmate in prison.
Stop.
Yeah. But anyway, you looked fabulous. And it was a wonderful event. It raised a whole bunch of money.
We think about a $250,000. We're going to find out.
Truly amazing. Yeah. So thank you to everybody who supported all of the
big
sponsors.
Shout out to Daphne Plump, the event producer, and to Amy Zhang, of course, in our office, who does so much, and all the sponsors like CARD and TWIW and Raymond Rocks. Yeah, very nice. Yeah.
All right. So we'll probably talk some more about Denim and Diamonds in the coming weeks, but it's time. We have to take a break because we are going to be joined in just a few moments by Byron Katie,
who is the author of Loving What Is, among
many
other books, and does a process called The Work, 4 questions that can change your life. And her purpose here, she says, is to alleviate suffering. And because I am, in my opinion, doing a lot of suffering because of my husband's cancer, my son's autism, and our financial crisis because of the resulting two conditions. I'd like to see how she can alleviate mine. I try not to suffer. I try to be proactive, but to me, there is some suffering inherent in those situations. I'd like to see. It's going to be interesting to see how she deals with it.
Yeah, Nancy's willing to do some of the
Bare my
work
soul.
with Katie, and we're thrilled to have Katie on the show and talk and introduce to some of you who don't know what the work is and how it might be helpful to you. So we'll be right back after these messages. What do you think about the prevalence of autism, the rising number of prevalence, and what are your thoughts on what this world is going to be like with so many individuals on the autism spectrum?
I think a lot of the increase is just increased detection on the milder spectrum, but I think there is some severe autism that's increased. Older parents having children would be one factor. You know, lack of vitamins, like the B vitamins prior to pregnancy, chemical insults, taking prescription drugs in the first trimester. There's a whole lot of little insults like this that can interact with susceptible genetics. I work in a technical field, and there's mild autism and Asperger's and dyslexics all over it. One of the best millwrights in the feedlot industry is severe dyslexic. He's one of the best millwrights that there is, and that builds complicated feed mills. And the thing that worries me is they've taken so many of the hands-on classes out of the school: cooking, sewing, woodworking, metalworking, auto shop. There's a lot of kids that are kind of different. They make great mechanics, and we have a shortage of mechanics right now. We have a shortage of engineers. I'm getting concerned that there's some smart kids that are kind of different, kind of getting a handicap label. Now, where the diagnosis really makes a difference is later on in life with their relationships. And the wife is wondering why the husband is not very demonstrative and, you know, not very lovey-dovey and emotional. And this is where getting a diagnosis can really help their marriage, because then the wife understands. See, that's where that kind of, when it comes to relationships, that's where the diagnosis can really, really make a difference. I think one of the problems today is sort of a more social society today. You know, the kid that was a little bit not too social before, he'd be out there in the auto mechanic shop, getting along great with the shop teacher, and they got rid of that kind of stuff. You see, I'm in a weird situation where I walk back and forth between the autism world and the sort of metalworking and cattle working kind of world. And there's farmers that I know that are on the spectrum, and they're doing great in farming.
So maybe it's not that these kids actually do have a diagnosis then, but maybe the prevalence was there before?
Well, I think on the mild end, I think the prevalence is probably there. But I think there's severe autism that has increased. There's way too much sugar in the diet. We also have an omega-3 deficient diet in this country. We're not getting enough omega-3s. I think let's go back to the alternative things: fish oil supplements, some of the B vitamins, and lots of exercise. Kids are eating way too much sugar, and kids are not just getting enough activity. You know, mother used to say to me, go outside and run the energy out of you. Well, and kids aren't doing that today, so that makes the ADHD worse.
What would you do if your child was hurting?
If your family's future was uncertain?
If help seemed out of reach.
Have you been given no hope?
Taka means I am not alone in this.
This is the reality for families affected by autism, and today, the number of children with autism is growing more rapidly than ever. Taka unites these families and shows that they do not have to fight this battle alone.
Our oldest son, Jared, who has autism, when we first took him to the doctor to get the diagnosis, you know, it's so sad because they offer you nothing. There's no help, there's no hope.
One of the things that you learn with autism is being very grateful for even the small milestones. You know, when you first get the diagnosis, you go through all the range of emotions. You know, this can't be happening. Why is this happening? You have to get to a point where it's the emotion that has to be leading is, what can I do? The first thing that struck me was walking to a room and seeing, oh my gosh, we're not alone. And there is this very strong community that's already set. And something I still today associate with Taka the most is hope. To me, that's what Taka means. Taka means hope.
It's like you've got all these dreams and goals of what your son's going to do, and you get your diagnosis and you're sent home. And that's it. There's no plan of action. There's no, here's autism, here's what we're going to do to make your life better and help him. It's strictly go home and try to process it and go on the internet. It was devastating, and you just, you know, you go through this 3 week of depression and then you snap out of it. You have to. And then you start making phone calls and trying to figure out what is autism and what are we going to do. And then we found Taka, and it was life-changing.
Autism, there really is no definitive answer. It is trying to find the resources that are out there that can assist you to help your child so that, you know, you just don't feel so helpless at those particular moments.
There was direction and there was hope and there was a little ray of sunshine that he's going to be okay and we're going to be okay. I always look back and think we would never be where we are. Carson wouldn't be where he is at without Taka.
So 13 years ago, my son was diagnosed with autism, and that put our whole family into a tailspin. There were so many different ideas and things that were not proven. Nobody knew what guidance to give us. We had no direction. And then we found Taka. They helped give us a path to follow, help give our son a better future and make him healthy and put him back onto the road of recovery. When your son's first diagnosed, the first thing you hope for is, gosh, I just want my son to speak. I just want to be able to communicate with him in some way. Then you want a little more. You want him to go to a regular school. Then you want him to potentially have a real life and go to college. So you're always hoping for the future of your child. My son is a happy, healthy, vibrant young boy that's going to turn 15 really soon. And we couldn't be more pleased, and without Taka, I don't think we'd be in the place that we are today. We believe the future is not defined for many affected by autism. There is hope and direction for these kids and their families. Taka is dedicated to providing community, support, education, and hope to families affected by autism.
At Taka,
At Taka,
At Taka,
We are families with autism helping.
helping.
helping families.
helping families with autism.
Hi, my name is Matt. I am 19 years old, and I was diagnosed with autism when I was 6 years old. Autism is one of the fastest growing developmental disabilities in the United States, but I am living proof that with the right treatment, hope is possible. My future is not limited. Today, I am attending Fullerton Community College, and I run for the cross-country team for fun with my friends. It makes me feel proud when I think about my progress. Chances are you know someone affected by autism. Show them they are not alone and help others get on the road to recovery. Contribute to Talk About Curing Autism today.
The Institute for Behavioral Training provides courses in applied behavior analysis for the treatment of autism. Access IBT e-learning videos on the move and learn at your own pace.
I'm going to talk a little bit about intensity.
IBT e-learning makes any location your classroom on the go.
So our objectives for today are to really learn what is autism and how is it diagnosed.
Get professional guidance with IBT face-to-face training. IBT face-to-face training courses prepare you to effectively implement ABA-based interventions. Choose between small group and one-to-one instruction. Earn BCBA supervision hours via one-to-one video conferencing.
So I had a chance to review your BIP today. You know what? It looked really good. You did a good job with it.
IBT continuing education courses. Earn credit through webinars, conferences, article reviews, and e-learning videos. You can learn more at ibehavioraltraining.com. IBT, 360 degrees of ABA training.
Welcome back to Let's Talk Autism.
We just had Doreen run out the door. She's here to hear
Yes,
Byron Katie.
Dr. Doreen Grandpichet just came into the studio to say hello to Byron Katie and then ducked out so that she could hear. But Nancy and I are so excited because joining us via Skype right now is the really wonderful and fabulous, there she is, Byron Katie. And
Hello.
Hello. And Katie, thank you so much for being with us here today. We're all at Twitter and excited. For people who have never heard of you before, which I can't imagine that there's anybody out there who hasn't, but you are an amazing author. I've got your book, which was transformational for me in my life, Loving What Is, right here on the desk.
Yes.
You have given so much to so many people, helping to shine a flashlight into a way for us to find peace, and as you say, end suffering, that's your goal, to help us to end suffering. So I thank you for being here. I'm so excited that I know you've done extensive work with all kinds of people, even in prisons, and certainly you've done a lot of work with parents of children on the autism spectrum. And so thrilled that they've got a closer look at you today and have an opportunity to hear you in a little while. We're gonna talk about some things with Nancy and see if we can turn a thought around. But we thought we'd start, Katie, with introducing people who aren't familiar with what the work is and how it came about.
Well, the work is, it's a process of meditating on a moment in time where we were stressed out. Maybe we were arguing with someone, or maybe we were feeling, we were worried about something or someone, or we were angry, upset. So those things continue to reoccur in our minds, and it's the cause of depression, etc. So the work is a way to identify what we were thinking and believing in that situation where we were experiencing stress.
So it's really transformational. But I wonder, Katie, if you could tell a little bit about how it came to be. How did you become so wise and discover the work?
Well, it was after years of depression, agoraphobia, just a terrible state of mind. I was sleeping on the floor because I was so full of self-loathing, I didn't believe I even deserved a bed to sleep in. Now, that's low, and I really was suicidal. So this particular morning, I was sleeping on the floor, and actually a cockroach crawled over my foot, and I opened my eyes, and I woke up in two ways. I woke up like I woke up every morning, and I also woke up with no identification. It was just that moment in time where there was no thought. And then the mind, all those thoughts just hit me, and all of a sudden there was a window and a ceiling and a bed and there was this whole world that existed. So I saw in that moment that when I believed my thoughts, I suffered, and when I didn't believe them, I didn't suffer. So out of that came this process that I call the work. It's a way to question the thoughts that you're thinking and believing that cause all the stress in your life, all the heartache in your life, and all the suffering in the world, actually.
And for a lot of our viewers, this might sound a little foreign and like, well, that just sounds a little too easy.
A little overly simplistic. Is it as simple as it sounds, Katie?
Well, that's one complaint I hear about the work. It's so simple, but if it were not simple, I never would have discovered it. And so, it's actually, when we look at it, it takes a lot of courage to do the work, because we're questioning those assumptions and those judgments that are running our life.
Now, let me ask you, you say it takes a lot of work to do the work. Is it something, once you learn it?
Courage.
Or courage, sorry, not work. Mm-hmm. Is it something that once someone learns, they can do sort of habitually, or is it something that, like a muscle, has to be flexed? How easy is this to access and to continue once you've started the process?
Well, people who do the work for a while, in other words, continue to question what they believe, it just becomes automatic in your head. It's just like you've grown like a third arm or something. It's just like, that, is it true? It's like eventually every assumption you make ends in a question mark. So it leaves one with a very open mind. And when our mind is open, we see options that weren't there that aren't available to a closed mind.
Okay. And I had a question about what are some of the transformations that you've seen in people's lives that have practiced this, either on a one-time basis or on a continual basis? What have you seen besides the transformation in your own life?
Well, their lives shift so dramatically that the letters, the emails that pour into me are just, it's so, it's amazing to receive that kind of feedback. And, the work is, anyone can do it if their mind is open to it.
Okay.
And I certainly have seen, and we had just heard from Dr. Granpeche that she thanked you for your work and the work in her life, and just by virtue of seeing you work with people and reading your book, it was transformational for me. And I know so many people in my life. In fact, when I posted on Facebook yesterday about the fact that you were going to be on, I received an outpouring of messages both on Facebook and in my personal email talking about people whose lives you saved through this work. So I think it's important for people to we're gonna do some work with Nancy in just a second. I want to encourage everybody who's listening to have an open mind to the possibility that maybe there's another way of looking at things and receiving things, and we're gonna learn from Katie.
We're gonna learn it, but first I want to tell our viewers, if they're interested in this, do you call it a technology, a technique? I'm wondering what to call it, Katie.
It's a process. For me, it's a practice.
Okay. So a practice and a process.
It's as though, people they take a few moments out of their lives, let's say in the morning, just to get still and meditate. Mm-hmm. Well, the work is meditation. We're meditating on an assumption. And for example, he doesn't care about me, or there's something wrong with me, or I don't have enough money, or my child is hopelessly ill. Any of these thoughts, and let's say my child is hopelessly ill, then I would just sit in, meditate on, is it true? My child is hopelessly ill. Can I really know that it's true? My child is hopelessly ill. And then just meditate on that, and then notice how you react, what happens when you believe that thought. And as you meditate on that, you see clearly those situations where you are so worried, and you see how you react, and you notice the emotions that happen when you believe the thought. And out of that, how you treat your child and yourself when you believe that thought. The depression, the addictions for some of us that take hold. And then you meditate on that fourth and last question. Who would you be in that situation, for example, with your child, without the thought, my child is hopelessly ill? And you see something there that has always been, it's radical to see what we see without our story. And then we turn it around. My child is hopelessly ill. Turn it around. In that moment, I'm hopelessly ill in my head when I see my child that way. Another turnaround, my child is not hopelessly ill. And then we meditate on that to see what arises to meet that turnaround. So, that meditation, it takes, it's a process, and it takes maybe 10, 20 minutes, whatever you can spare in your life to radically change it. And sanity is a big time saver.
Yes.
When we're living out of fear and stress, we get a lot accomplished.
How can people find out more about the work? How can they access it? Besides the book, the latest is Loving What Is, the 4 questions that can change your life, which people can pick up. What is your website? How can people find out more about this?
My website is thework.com. And everything of value is free on that site.
Okay.
And we have a helpline there that is that anyone can call, no charge, and just have a judge and neighbor worksheet filled in. In other words, your thoughts about a stressful situation on paper, and we'll even help you with that if you don't have it. But we'll just do the work with you, and we don't ask your name or who you are or where you're from. We just support you to understand the work and until you can do it yourself.
Great. So you're going to do this with me, and what's I think particularly good about the situation I am in is that I do have a child with autism who is not recovered, but we'll talk about this, and a lot of our viewers are in the same situation. They have other circumstances in their life that are very difficult. They have a lot of financial stress because of those circumstances, and I fit all 3 of those. So we're going to talk about that when we get back and have you do the work with me. I'm excited.
Wonderful.
Okay. All right, we're going to take one short break and we'll be right back after this message.
Hello, fellow activists. In our last segment, we talked about step number 2, educate yourself. Step number 3 is get support. Now, any journey can feel overwhelming if you feel like you're walking it alone. Well, you're far from alone, because with 1 in 50 kids diagnosed with autism today, there are a lot of us out there. Of course, there's always the issue of financial support. Now, there's a handful of organizations out there that offer financial support to families in need. ACT Today, or Autism Care and Treatment Today, is one of them. Visit our website at www.act-today.org to find out more about our grant process. I want to talk about a different kind of support today, emotional support. Now, you can get that from other travelers on this path. Some of the best advice I've ever received is from the moms of other kids with autism who went to school with Wyatt or were involved with programs with him. Then there are the pioneers. These are the families that have gone through this years ago, and there was very little information out there. All of these people seem to have the desire to pay it forward. Now, one of them, Lisa Ackerman, who is one of my mentors, started an organization called TACA, Talk About Curing Autism. She actually took the concept of mentors and support groups and made it available to everybody. You can go to their website, talkaboutcuringautism.org, to find out more. During the first and most difficult year after Wyatt's diagnosis, I wrote an email to close family and friends, letting them know what was going on and the challenges our family was facing and why we dropped out of sight. I was amazed at the outpouring of love and affection and all the help I received from that email. First, you have to be vulnerable. You can't be afraid to ask. Try this out. Could you cook me a meal? Are you going to the market? Can you pick me up a few things? Could your kids play with my kid and make them feel included? Or can you come over and clean my house? Well, maybe not that last one, except with your best friend. And maybe the best support of all is having someone that listens, and that doesn't cost a dime. So until next time, surround yourself with the loving kindness of others and keep the faith.
Welcome back to Let's Talk Autism with Shannon and Nancy. Nancy and I are very grateful that we have with us right now live via Skype Byron Katie, author of Loving What Is. And that's an understatement because there's so many other books that she's written as well, but an amazing guide and powerful woman. She's been talking with us about the work. And Nancy has agreed to do some of the work with Katie live so that you guys can get an idea of what happens when you wade in. So I'm going to turn it over to you guys.
Are you ready, Katie?
Yes, Nancy, what is the situation that that is has been stressful for you regarding your child and autism and everything that you must deal with
Can I
in your courageous life?
Yes. I am overwhelmed by the responsibilities of having a chronically ill husband with advanced prostate cancer and renal failure, a child with autism, and the resultant financial disaster that has happened to my family due to those two circumstances, and being the primary breadwinner and running a national foundation, which is a great joy to me. But having a chronically ill husband for 20 years, a child with autism who is 14, and the resultant responsibilities that are on my shoulders is overwhelming.
Wow. I'm just breathless listening to that. So you have to take care of your husband and child.
Correct.
Is it true?
Yes.
I hear you say yes, it's correct. And then we're working with the 4 questions here. You have to take care of these 2 people.
Yes.
You absolutely know that it's true that you have to take care of them.
Yes.
And how do you react? What happens when you believe that thought that you have to take care of them?
It is feeling like every day there's a mountain to scale.
So get in touch with the emotions that go with that. You've felt them over and over and over, so they are familiar to you.
Very familiar. Very familiar.
So
and very familiar in that I come from a background with a brother with Down syndrome and a mother that was an alcoholic that I did a lot of caregiving for. So.
Oh boy, boy, oh boy. Okay. So with your husband and child, you have to take care of them.
Yes.
Now, in the mornings, like this morning, do you see the situation where you're with your husband, you're with your son? Is that a son?
Yes.
You're with your husband, you're with your son.
Yes.
Do you see that situation?
Yes.
You see you assisting them?
Yes.
Okay. Now, in that situation, imagine being there as you were, assisting them. Who would you be without the thought you have to take care of them? Who would you be without that story on them? So now it's almost as though, Nancy, you just look at you, look at them in that situation as though you're standing aside or you're up above it looking down. Who would you be as you witness those people without the thought, I have to take care of them?
I'm trying to separate the thought from the actual reality of the caregiving, because I can't, in my mind, separate the two.
You see you there with the 2.
Yes. I see me getting my son ready. I see all the things I have to do that...
Excellent,
okay?
excellent.
I see all the things I have to do.
Who would you be doing all of that without the thought, I have to do this?
Without the thought I have to do this?
Yes. I mean, you're doing all the right things.
Right.
Just who would you be without the thought, I have to do this?
I guess I would be a person that, I mean, if I got rid of the thought that I have to do it, it would feel good, but the reality is I do have to do it.
Okay. Oh, that's okay.
Okay. Because I do have to do it. Nobody else is doing it. Nobody else can do it.
That's okay.
Okay.
That's okay.
All right.
I'm just asking you who you would be
if I didn't have the thought that I have to do this. I would feel a lot of burdens lifted.
Okay, so just visit that for a moment. Look at you doing all that you do without the thought, I have to do this.
And I choose to do it because that's my...
That's very different.
But I do choose to do it. And I've always chosen to do it.
That's very different than I have to do it.
Okay.
I have to take care of my husband and children. So now we've done the 4 questions.
Okay.
So let's find opposites.
Okay.
I have to care for my husband and son. Turn it around. I don't have to.
I don't have to care for my husband and son?
No, you're free. You don't have to. You do it. You do it because of who you are and what you are at your core. It's simply the right thing to do out of your heart, but you don't have to do it. And you never had to do it. This is just a way of experiencing you beyond this concept that I have to take care of them. It's so important to see who you are in this.
I do, though, Katie, see that I choose to do it because it is the right thing to do. That doesn't, for me, take away the suffering of seeing my husband with 3 bags hanging out of his body, a leg swollen.
Your husband is suffering.
Yes.
Okay, you saw him this morning.
And I love him, and to see him suffering is very hard.
Okay, and you saw him this morning.
Yes.
He is suffering.
Yes.
Is it true? And I invite
Yes.
all of you watching this on Skype today to find someone in your life that you believe is suffering and go back to that situation where you're with that person and they're suffering and follow along. This is inquiry. And there aren't any right or wrong answers. It's just witnessing the situation again in your mind's eye. It's looking again.
Okay. So is he suffering?
So your husband
is suffering.
Is suffering.
Yes.
Is it true?
Yes.
Can you absolutely know that it's true your husband is suffering?
Yes.
Okay. Now you said it so quickly. You are not, or I'm not getting that you are meditating on that moment in time. So we're meditating on that moment in time this morning. Your husband is suffering. Look again, get close. In other words, look at him closely. Your husband is suffering. Can you absolutely know that it's true he's suffering? So witness, I invite all of you in the audience to witness in your mind's eye with your eyes closed. And the answer is either yes or no. It's not no but or yes but or because. It's just yes or no.
Right.
And some of us are new to meditation, and it takes a lot of stillness and patience for some of us. And can you absolutely know that it's true your husband is suffering?
Yes.
Now notice how you react. What happens when you believe this thought or you think this thought, my husband is suffering? What happens to your emotions when you think that thought?
I feel compassion. I feel loss, regret, pain.
Yes. Now, and Nancy, notice the images that were in your head in that moment in time of past and future when you had the thought, my husband is suffering. Notice the future you saw in your head regarding you, him, and your son, and your finances, and all of it.
Extreme worry, anxiety, and responsibility.
Yes.
A sense of I'm burdened, yes.
So this is what's happened in the moment we think the thought, my husband is suffering in that situation. Now let's move to question 4. And there are only 4.
Okay.
Who would you be? You see you there with your husband. Who would you be without the thought, my husband is suffering? look at him, just drop the thought, just for a moment, without the thought, my husband is suffering. Look at him. What else do you see? And I'm inviting all of you to get connected with that human being. It's like drop your story, witness. What else do you see? Who would you be without the thought, my husband is suffering?
I would be detached from his suffering.
And you feel the connection?
The connection I have with his suffering?
The connection you have with your husband?
Do I feel the connection I have with him? Yes.
It's like that thing drops and you're connected. That separation drops and you're connected. Let's turn it, and it's so beautiful to get connected with our loved ones like this. It's, we're ending the fear of suffering. Like in my life, I'm so grateful that this work found me, because anyone suffering, there's something in me that it's as though when it comes to suffering, I'm fearless. So I'm there to serve, and I'm connected, and to laugh, and to love, and to serve. It's what our lives are about. And when I think the thought he's suffering, there's a disconnect. It's not right or wrong, but I see those images like you did, Nancy. Those images are of the future and past are necessary before we can believe it, and suffering sets in. So let's turn it around. My husband is suffering. Turn it around to yourself.
Okay.
In that moment, I am.
Turn it around from where I'm.
And opposite. My
opposite.
husband is suffering.
My husband is
am.
suffering.
My husband is suffering. I am.
I am, but I'm turning it around. I'm not suffering with him. I'm not.
It takes a little. Let me guide you here.
Okay.
You're so new to the work. My husband is suffering. Turned around to myself, I am suffering.
Yes, my husband is suffering and I am suffering.
Yes. Now, you don't have cancer. One of you is healthy, the other has cancer.
Mm-hmm.
So we might say one of you is legitimately suffering,
mm-hmm.
and you're free of cancer. So it's like if I'm standing there with my husband and he's suffering, why am I suffering? It's almost as though if I don't suffer when you suffer, it means I don't care about you. If I don't suffer when you suffer, it means I don't love you. That's crazy. There are two people suffering there. In my world, just my own experience, there is something off with that. So I'm just taking a look at my husband suffering, turn around, I'm suffering. Okay, why am I suffering? I just discovered why. I saw how I react when I believe the thought. I went into the past and future. So it wasn't my husband that was the cause of my suffering. It was the images in my head from the past and future. And how that affected you. So our husband takes the rap for what we're thinking and believing and imaging. So it's like our suffering is not his fault and it's not our fault. We're simply believing our thoughts. You know, those images, it's a movie. And when we witness them, we suffer. And we think it's the object, in this case, the husband, that we are suffering, that is causing our suffering. So those are a lot of words. I hope I haven't made this complicated at all. Just
No, I see my attachment
to what you're thinking
to
and
what I'm
believing.
thinking. I get that part.
Yes. Okay.
I get that part.
And the thought you were thinking and believing is my husband is suffering. And then you went into the future and it's a nightmare.
Right.
So my husband is suffering, so turn it around. Another turnaround, my husband is not suffering. Now see if you can just find a moment this morning in that situation. Look again. Can you see a moment when he was not suffering? Just one moment in time.
I can see a brief moment.
Yeah. Can you find another one?
I can't find a lot of moments where he wasn't suffering this morning. I could find one or two.
Not a lot, but
Right.
you found one.
One or two. Uh-huh.
Now you might go home and say, honey, this morning when we were together, were you suffering? And if he says yes, terribly, you can say, and was there a moment when you weren't? And he might amaze you, and maybe not. We don't ever know. But I just think it's so kind to consider them, their reality, when we're so busy believing for them, which affects our lives. So anyway, I think this is the oddest I've ever done the work with anyone, because I have said more words than I can remember saying regarding one inquiry. But I so want mothers and fathers and brothers and sisters who are suffering from the kind of experience that you've been given to know that there is a way out, and the way out is in for some of us. And this is just something I stumbled onto that has served millions of people are finding their way through self-inquiry. And if it serves someone out there, I'm very grateful, because that gives us all a kinder world, and less suffering is a kinder world. That's a lot you just went through, Nancy, or it feels like a lot from here, and you're so courageous.
Thank you. I am getting the attachment to his suffering that I feel from it, and that I carry with me, and how if I can turn it around to, regardless of if he is suffering.
Exactly. If you can just turn it around to I'm suffering and take care of one family member, then the entire family benefits.
Okay. I can get where you're saying that I need to turn around the attaching to the image of his suffering and making it my suffering.
Yeah, and that's all that was going on when you were with him this morning.
Yes.
You know, we're so busy witnessing out of a past and future completely innocently, but we're experiencing all that. We don't know what's going on, and we really see them as what we're imaging.
Right.
And so we really don't even, it's like no two people have ever met. They are who we believe them to be, so we're not as connected as we have a right to be.
Yes.
And there's less joy as a result.
And I just want to say, as a bystander, you know, how courageous for both of you to do this in this way. And, you know, one of the things that came up for me as you guys were talking about how often we language things with, when you had the moment when you talked about, well, I have to do this versus I choose to do this. You know, because I know you so well, and I know what a privilege you consider it to be to have the husband that you have and the child that you have. and that you are a person who is about giving. You know, and it was one of those moments for me where how often in a day do we think, well, I have to do this,
right,
when it's what we've chosen
yeah.
to do.
And even if we say we chose to do it, some of us don't believe that. It just, we're trying to feel better.
Yeah.
But when we look at, I am free to leave these two people. And many people do under the circumstances that you are living, Nancy.
Yes.
A lot of them do. They can't take it.
Right.
And they hate themselves and they feel guilty the rest of their lives. And probably we all want to just run at some time in our life. But you hang in, and you don't have to. You are free. So when I say I choose to, you know, language is odd, but for some of us to go a step further and say, I'm free to, I don't have to do this, you know, as inner talk. And if someone says, Nancy, how do you do this? You say, well, I'm free. I don't have to do it.
I choose
you know,
to.
I feel right when I do, and that's what I'm in touch with, and that's everything. Because out of that, I can serve at the highest level. I'm free.
And you do. You serve at the highest level.
You don't walk.
And that's an amazing thing to acknowledge in yourself, that is what you are doing. You are being of the highest service.
And I don't, Katie,
But
I don't remind myself of that on a, I don't get in touch with that choosing on a continual basis. And that's what I need to be in touch with, not the I have to. Is that kind of where we're getting at here? It's the...
If it's true, you're really choosing to, but it could be that there's a part of all of us that don't really believe that until we really we're free. We don't have to. That's just true.
We don't have to.
No.
But we can choose to.
Absolutely. But when we know we're free, when we really get that, it's no longer a burden to do what we're doing.
So it's no longer a burden to care for your child with autism because you're free.
It's a delight. It's not just, you know, I can do it and we're working through it. It's just like, this is fun. This is a privilege.
Privilege I'll go with. The fun I'm not, well, sometimes.
Well, you know, I don't call it the work for nothing.
Right.
But rather
the privilege part I can get.
Separated from my children and my husband and the world, I just couldn't. It's as though I couldn't bear it any longer, and something just snapped, and it was that moment on the floor where I just noticed the peace, and then the cause of suffering is a state of mind that I'm assuming to be true. Anything.
This is all sinking in, and I'm hoping it's sinking in for our viewers today, because I think that a lot of them can relate to this in terms of having a, you know, we could have chosen the situation of my son as opposed to my husband, but I do have those two.
Isn't it the same?
It's
one has
very
cancer,
similar.
One has autism, and you're worried about both.
Right, of course.
Yeah.
Of course.
Yeah. But, you know, if there's suffering, that's enough suffering in the world. You take care of yours.
I actually don't believe my son's suffering at all.
Well, your husband.
Yeah.
And,
even though he has autism, that's
son.
my, you know.
It's like we're going to catch up with
right.
him
That
sooner or
might
later.
that
That's
might have
what
been
we're
probably
doing.
another one to take. That would have been, because I can see where we put on our children with autism that they're suffering. Where is that true? Probably not in most of the cases, right? We're just putting our neurotypical selves are putting that on our atypical children. So anyway,
But just notice how often in the day you believe that.
Okay.
That he's suffering.
Right. Yeah,
And
with
then
both of them.
you
Yeah.
might ask him and don't expect an answer. And even when we get an answer, we still don't know if it's true or not. So we're really left with ourselves and to deal with our own heads.
Mm-hmm.
And when we're not suffering, we are connected to not only our family members, but to ourselves and the world around us.
And I think what you just said is part and parcel of this too, that once you look at one thought a different way, then it causes you to think about other thoughts and question, well, this other thought that I've held very close, maybe I should look at that. And it becomes, as you said, a practice and something that you can begin to do. Unfortunately, we're out of time and we're past time, but I have to say, for those of you who are interested, I definitely want to encourage you to go to thework.com, read Loving What Is. Katie had mentioned that there is a number on thework.com that you can call and
do
this process, which is a huge gift to the world.
Yes, thank you, Katie, for bringing it out there and making it accessible. I think that's really a great thing that you do to make this accessible to all.
We've got a lot in common as far as service. And again, the work is free on thework.com. There's a place that says how to do the work, and it's all there, and also all over YouTube. And thank you for your service to the world.
Thank you so much.
Thank
and,
you.
And we want to say, for people who want to delve in further too, you do workshops that sometimes they're multi-day, and for people who really say, I want to dive further into this, you have a 28-day program. We had so many questions that viewers wrote in that we didn't get to, but some of them, people were asking, how can I get my child on the spectrum to do the work? You have a section in this book about getting children to do the work.
Yes, and also there's a book for young children that is Tiger, Tiger, Is It True? Yes. I'm coming out with a new children's book and the children of all ages, of course, is Hooray, the Sky is Falling.
Okay, I think I need that one.
Okay.
You are a wonderful resource, and thank you so much for all the work you do and for being willing to be here with us. And please thank your staff, they've been amazing in arranging this work. They are amazing. And you are amazing.
Thank you, Katie. I appreciate you doing this with me, and I'm honored to do the process.
You're so welcome.
Thank you for you and for the work.
And Shannon, thank you also for being, both of you, such warm hosts. And so valuable to all of us.
Well, I hope we get to meet sometime in person. But thank you for being with us, Katie.
So welcome. Thank you for your good work.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
And we've gone way over time, but
I'm wondering if there's a way we might be able to address this at another time. Maybe we could send Katie some of the questions that came in, and she could answer them.
Absolutely,
so, because our viewers,
and I'm sure that we'll want to talk about this a little bit more next week and see where you are on some of these thoughts next week.
I think I'm not here next week, but we'll
the week after.
Yeah.
We will discuss it further with Nancy and see
or I could come in tomorrow and we could talk about it a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
Looking at a thought in a different way, little tiny shifts that might be happening.
Okay.
But again, get the book, Loving What Is. All right, you guys, we're totally out of time. I will see you tomorrow. Tomorrow on the show, we have Caleb Kraft from Make Magazine. You know, Temple Grandin, while we were interviewing her, endorsed Make Magazine and said this should be in every school. So Caleb Kraft wrote a blog about that, and he's going to be with us tomorrow talking about why. I know why, but I know you guys want to know why. We're going to hear it directly from them. We also have Ilana Gershowitz going to Skype with us directly from Africa to talk about the yellow canaries of the Bizia. I hope I've gotten that name right. But this is an amazing story of families that are walking and doing whatever they can to get their children help. You want to talk about how we lack resources. There is a community in Africa that have taken it upon themselves and are walking to centers to get their children help. Ilana's going to talk about how you can help with this community and make things change for them. So a pretty exciting show tomorrow. But we'll be back next week. And next week we have a special...
I'm not here next week.
That's okay, but we are going to have a special salute to our military families because it's Veterans Day. We'll be here on Wednesday to do that.
I think Amy might be filling in for me.
Oh, that would
for
be
just
very
a segment.
exciting. That would be exciting.
To talk about our Active Day for Military Families program.
Truly wonderful. But then Nancy will be back with us the week after. I believe that's the week that we have Vince Redmond on.
Yes.
So very exciting. But until then, give your kiddos a hug from me.
And give yourselves a hug from me.
Bye-bye for now.
Bye-bye.